This is Pattern Interrupt, a short episode designed to gently disrupt a belief or habit that may be quietly shaping how you feel in dating. He paid for dinner, and before he'd even put his card away, you had already said something like, "I'll get the next one," or "Let me at least cover the tip," or "I feel bad, you always pay." Or he said something genuinely kind about you, something specific and considered, and yet you deflected it with a joke, or immediately returned the compliment before you had actually let his compliment land. Or he made a plan, a real one. He looked something up, made a reservation, thought about what you would enjoy, and you spent part of the evening feeling vaguely uncomfortable about the effort, quietly looking for a way to contribute something equivalent to balance a ledger that he wasn't keeping. If any of that sounds familiar, this episode is for you. What I'm describing is a difficulty with receiving, and it's one of the most common and least examined patterns that I see in dating. Not because women aren't generous or caring, it's quite the opposite. The difficulty with receiving often lives right alongside a remarkable capacity to give. The problem is the asymmetry. The giving feels natural, even easy. The receiving feels uncomfortable in a way that's hard to articulate but very consistent. It shows up in small moments, the deflected compliment, the immediate reciprocation before you've actually taken something, the compulsive need to contribute equally, financially, energetically, logistically, even when the other person is genuinely offering something and not keeping score. The subtle discomfort of being treated well that makes you want to do something about it immediately, rather than simply letting it be. None of these things look like a problem from the outside. They can even look like generosity. But underneath them is often something worth examining. Difficulty tolerating being on the receiving end of care without immediately doing something to earn it or balance it out. The question worth asking is why? For many women, the discomfort with receiving is rooted in an early relationship with giving and getting that was subtly imbalanced. Environments where love felt more available when you were contributing, where care was something you worked for rather than something you were simply given, where being a burden, needing things, accepting things, taking up space carried some implicit cost. Not necessarily dramatic, but often just the quiet accumulation of experiences that taught you it's safer to give than to receive. Giving keeps you in control. Giving keeps you valuable. Receiving, however, makes you vulnerable to a generosity that might be withdrawn. There's also a version of this that's more cultural than personal. The particular pressure on women to be low maintenance, to not want too much, to be easy and uncomplicated, and certainly not the kind of woman who just sits back and lets a man pay for things without doing something to offset it. These messages are pervasive and they land, even when you intellectually disagree with them. Whatever the root, the effect in dating is real and worth understanding. When you can't receive gracefully, when you deflect, minimize, immediately reciprocate, a few things happen simultaneously. The first is that you interrupt the dynamic of giving and receiving that is actually one of the early ways a man experiences whether there's something meaningful here. When he offers something and you immediately offset it, you've closed the loop before it could complete. He gave, you neutralized it. And the intimacy that could have developed in that exchange wasn't able to. The second is that you signal, without meaning to, something about how you see yourself in the dynamic. Constant, immediate reciprocation can communicate that I don't feel comfortable being cared for without earning it, and I need us to be exactly even at all times. The weight of your generosity is something that I have to immediately offset. That isn't a message about him. It's a message about your relationship with receiving care. And the third is that you deprive yourself of the actual experience of being given to, which is underneath all of this, the thing worth noticing most. Because if you can't let care land, if you're always immediately redirecting or minimizing or balancing, you never actually get to feel what it's like to be genuinely received by someone, to be treated well, and simply let it be good. Receiving well doesn't mean passivity. It doesn't mean entitlement. It doesn't mean that you stop being generous or you stop contributing. It means that you can take in what someone offers, a compliment, a gesture, a plan, a kindness, and let it complete before you do anything else with it. It means that you can say thank you and mean it, without the thank you being the first word of a sentence that ends with something that balances the ledger. That capacity, as small as it sounds, is actually one of the most important things you can bring to early dating, because it tells the person across from you that you can be given to, that you can receive care without immediately making it complicated, that being generous toward you is something that can land and matter and be enough. That's not a small thing. That is the beginning of the dynamic where someone actually wants to keep giving, not because they have to, but because it means something. If something in this landed, there's more in the private podcast where I go deeper into where the discomfort with receiving usually comes from and what the actual work of shifting it looks and feels like. That's waiting for you in the show notes. This episode is complete as it is. Stay steady, and I'll see you next time.